Welcome to another edition of the Pulse of the 956 from 710 KURV News Talk. I am Sergio Sanchez, along with Sergio Sanchez, Sergio A. Sanchez, Sergio J. Sanchez, and here another conversation to, again, continue getting to know the candidates that are on the ballot. We got early vote, and that's it, Tuesday, the 17th, up and running, and then all the way to the 27th, and then March 3rd. And a call to everyone who cares, and that'd be you caring about your community, get yourself out there and vote. Sergio J. Sanchez, my friend, former prosecutor. He is a Republican. He's running for State House 41, and there's a lot more issues he wants to flesh out, make sure that goes on record for you to understand.
Appreciate it.
Where he stands. Yeah. Welcome back, brother.
Thanks for having me back in your home, Serge. Yeah. And we're game day is tomorrow. So
there we go.
Thank you for having me back, man.
Yeah. February 17th to the 27th, early vote. So here we go, people. Now, one thing you and I were talking about off air a lot of, you don't want Texas, you don't want the Valley, you don't want us to be Minnesota.
Yeah.
And all the protests and interference with federal law enforcement and all that. So what are you thinking? Tell me what do you want to do?
So we saw it. I mean, we obviously saw what happened in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, really these last several months. And I think it's dialed back a little bit. But it's clear it was a huge problem. And my position is Border Patrol and ICE, they have a function to do, and they're executing the law. There is law in the books. There's a lot of people that don't like the law. A lot of people that don't like the law. So what do you do? Well, you can't interfere with law enforcement that are enforcing the law. And that's what I saw over there. And there was some horrible acts that we've seen, and those will stand alone. And obviously things need to be investigated to flesh that out. But for the most part, these men and women of our federal agents, they're executing law and enforcing law, and that's their function. They've sworn an oath to do this. So I want to make sure here in Texas that they're protected. I've drafted legislation. If I'm blessed enough to win, Serge, I'll file this on day one. I've drafted legislation to address this issue, the conspiracy level of agitation and kind of this professional level of protest, which is not organic, and it's not it's very, very much planned and at the level, in my opinion,
and
of conspiracy.
Paid for.
Yeah, so I mean,
paid for.
Yeah, and do they live there? Are they being bussed in?
No. Yes.
Who's funding these things?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we understand kind of the what we all think of the George Soros sort of level of injection of funding and kind of the progressive level of funding that pays for these things. We worry about that, and that's fine. Okay, we're not going to interfere with our First Amendment right of speech and our First Amendment right to protest. We have in the public square, we can do these things, but that cannot interfere with the function of law enforcement. So I'm happy to talk about it. I'm going to meet with the men and women of Border Patrol later this evening. They're afraid. They're afraid here, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. And I have every intention of blocking those things that are happening in Minnesota. That level of agitation is not welcome in Texas, and I'm going to strengthen the law on that.
When you talk about fear, you're probably referencing what, doxing?
Yeah, for sure.
Them revealing where they live and their families and all that, which is, we know it happens, and that's what we're pushing back against. That's why they have to wear masks. And these morons on the left, they're demanding that ICE change your tactics, take their masks off. Yeah. Why? What? So you can identify them and send protesters all hours of the night?
They're putting their addresses out, Serge. These people have kids. They're at public schools. They're pushing the cart at HEB just like you and I. Yeah, doxing is a modern way of interfering with public duties. So I want to strengthen that and make sure that that's enumerated for the men and women of, for sure, the state officers that we have, the troopers, the sheriff's department, the constables, and obviously our city officers. They are for sure protected as public servants on this statute of interfering with public duties. I want to expand that to make sure that part of that protected class are federal agents, and as defined by the federal statute. So it's not on the books as we speak. The case law says that they are covered, but it creates this ambiguity. It says often or generally or most of the time. Yeah, let's just cut it out and let's just enumerate them as a protected class. I'm going to do that on day one. And furthermore, to create this conspiracy level of a felony, of the planning and the scheming that I see, it needs to be addressed here rather than on the individual basis of that one car that's blocking. And so I want to expand that out to a level of a conspiracy
I can
and a
see
felony.
where people would think, okay, we're walking a fine line here. Because if we put us in an alternate universe where we, common sense, traditional-minded, libertarian-minded, liberty-minded individuals fall into a trap where we don't show up to vote in elections, and the leftists and the Marxists take over, and they start passing all sorts of crazy laws, like in Canada and in Ireland and other places. Well, they will arrest us and prosecute us for showing up with an American flag or a Trump flag at some leftist communist rally, and we're the ones that get blamed and get thrown in jail, or we don't bend a knee at the altar of gender confusion and preference of pronouns. People are being thrown in jail in parts of the world for that, and we don't like that. So we'll have law enforcement come after us as well. The idea here is peaceful assembly.
Sure.
And what you're referring to, if I hear it right, is the conspiracy, the planning, almost like the RICO type of behavior, because I know they're training them.
For sure.
They're providing training and telling these individuals, these Marxists, to get in front, get in the way, interfere, break the law, interfere with federal law enforcement. They have a specific target, multiple rapists or child molester or somebody with a long rap. They're going to arrest him, but they tell these Soros-backed organizations, they train their people to get in the way, to be a-holes, to get in the way of traffic, all that. That is organized crime right there.
And they're at the level of disseminating intelligence, and they're aware of a raid at this place or an arrest of this a child predator or something like that that's here illegally. Okay, that guy needs to go, and nobody's fighting for that guy. But if you're going to interfere, and block that arrest, and what's striking to me is on camera, one of these agents with a mask on, just palms up in the air. I'm going to go arrest a child predator. He's here illegally. Let me do my job. Okay, who's got a problem with that? That guy needs to be arrested, and he needs to get the heck out of our country. There's no doubt about it. But the level of interference to get to that point, text messages go out. There's research. There's this kind of level of intel that passed around. Finally, to get to the truck to block this agent, all of those people that have touched that situation are guilty of this level of conspiracy, a level of a felony. And I expect the First Amendment challenge and this law will be very, very much tailored, not to speech, but to conduct. And that's how you pass that constitutional pushback. It's not violating your speech or your right to protest, but you don't have a right to interfere. And
speak all you want, carry your placards, your signs, stand in the corner, bullhorns, yell, whatever you want. Do not get in the way of law enforcement. It'll happen to me as well if I get in the way of any police officer arresting a friend. Say, oh no, leave him alone. I put my hand on the police officer. Well, I just touched somebody. I just committed assault. That's just common sense. But
and if I could, Serge, it exists on the federal statutes. You can't do this, and they're protected, and as well as the state statute. Interfering with public duties, right? These things exist, but not at the level of a conspiracy. And so I want to expand the law to include everybody that has touched this situation. They're all equally guilty. Let's just say it's a think tank in D.C., or let's just say it's people passing around information, or the modern way on the cell phone. Everybody that has touched this level of interference is equally guilty as the guy that is right in their face. Yeah. They're all equally guilty, and that's the definition of conspiracy.
I got to tell you, I'm really surprised that after so many years of cities and downtowns and businesses that have burned to the ground as a result of protests, individuals that have been out there that have been told, even by public officials. We go back to the riots of 2020. We go back to, after the George Floyd riots and the goading, the egging on by mayors, irresponsible mayors in big cities telling their people, and they stand back, sit back, and do nothing, knowing that people are going to, even minorities within minority groups, business owners, getting thugged, being attacked, all these thugs attacking shooting these people, all these people, they do nothing to protect.
Agreed. Well,
the
expand it out. I mean, let's just go up to a level of 10,000 feet to view this. The politicians themselves, if they're involved in encouraging these things, they could find themselves within this conspiracy statute. And then their defense has always been, well, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I wasn't on the street. I wasn't in front of this officer. I didn't interfere with anything. No, but if you're encouraging or if you're helping or you're providing information, you're culpable. You're culpable of this. And so for sure we need a backstop, Serge. This level, it will obviously expand from the Twin Cities of Minnesota to other regions of the country, eventually to Texas, eventually to South Texas. So I'm firm enough, and I'm bringing a prosecutor's mentality to this. I'm familiar with the conspiracy statutes. Let's give a perfect example: the bank robbery. Everybody involved in the bank robbery, from the lookout guy to everybody providing intelligence to the bank, obviously the holdup guy, the getaway driver, they're all equally guilty. That is the definition of conspiracy. You see it in a drug case: the driver, the packager, the negotiator, everybody that has touched these drugs or been involved in negotiating the sale. Anybody that's even tangentially connected is equally guilty.
Right.
That's the point of conspiracy.
Going to put that to the test. Sergio J. Sanchez, former federal prosecutor. He knows the law. Sergio J. Sanchez, a former prosecutor. He's running for State House 41 Republican. A reminder to go vote on the Republican side. You have to choose sides. You want to vote for him, you got to go to the Republican primary and go find him. If you live in State House District 41, which is pretty much a good chunk of North McAllen, a little bit of Mission, a little bit of Edinburgh, and I think it wiggles down somewhere a little south as well. So if you live in State House 41, look for him. You told me you're number one on the ballot, the first name.
I drew number one, so you got to go select the Republican side. I'm at the top of the ballot, and I'm asking for. I've presented a certain level of intensity, Serge, and it's not always law enforcement. I know there are other huge issues in the region. I speak to life and fighting for the unborn child, and I speak to property taxes, and I've got a plan. I finally calculated this out recently based on median averages of homes and median averages of property taxes. So I want to adopt the governor's plan and take it a little further. So now we're in the area of savings on the average household in Texas. $200 a month, $200 a month, if you're able to eliminate the school tax, and because we've got the surplus to pay for these things. So let's. I'm the only one that's calculated this out. It's been a lot of platitudes, a lot of generalities. Now we can have a mom calculate. Okay, $200 a month. That's another trip to HEB. O puedo ayudar a mi mamá. The way we do in our culture. This is a game changer in our community. And so I'm finally putting a dollar amount to it, and I've calculated. I've just taken the time. Nobody else has done this.
$2,400 a year, $2,400 a year on average.
Yep.
On the savings. Some a little more, some a little less. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, 5,000 gets cut in half.
Yeah.
And divide that by 12, and there you are. And that's some decent money. And it's actually a 219, but I've dialed it back to say 200, just to do a round number. But yeah, it's really 219.
We definitely expect property tax reform to be issue number one in the next legislative session. Governor Greg Abbott and the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, that's issue number one going into the next legislative session. So we need a contingent of lawmakers, state house representatives that are ready to take it past into the goal line
for sure
and make sure that we pass it, because I think that the word is busting the present system as we know it. We can't continue with like the yearly valuations, the yearly increase that are double digit for some people with no excuse.
Up to 10%, up to 10% every year.
No, senor.
Yeah,
that's got to change. Yeah,
for sure. And so we can't dictate from Austin what every city, school board, water district does, but we need to enact the authority to go to the voters and to the citizens, that we have the authority to pass along tax increases. Right now, it's getting crammed down our throat. So yeah, we're very it's top heavy, and it's pushed down on us, and it needs to be reversed to rethink. And there's a term I have for this: is taxpayer protectionism, very similar to consumer protectionism on the federal level. taxpayer protectionism in Texas to give the authority back to the people, we're going to do a thumbs up or a thumbs down on these tax increases.
In this primary election, both the Republicans and the Democrats, you guys on the left, the Democrats, well, they got their own set of, silly socialist and quasi-communist and very leftist-minded propositions. The Republican side, we've got a lot of these smaller government, individual-minded, individual responsibility, but especially on reining in government and wasteful spending and all that. You will see as you go vote in the Republican primary, those propositions at the very end. If you were touching on one, I do believe that there's a proposal, we should pass a law in Texas where these entities, if all entities proposing a tax rate, all tax rate increases, they need to go to a vote, all of them, to the general public.
For sure.
For whatever
and,
entity. Yeah.
For sure. And really to expand. I mean, this is a form of auditing, if you think about it, that the taxpayer of each city, that the citizen of each school board and these school entities, that we have the authority. So we're providing an audit, a thumbs up or thumbs down by way of approving or disapproving these increases. And furthermore, these referendums on large ticket items, for example, airport expansion. I think something just passed here in McAllen to increase the size of the airport, and that's great. And I would also ask for streets of gold if we could afford it. But at some point, Serge, the citizen needs to approve these things. And so when there is a one bid contract approved that came in for double the estimate, okay, red flags are going to go up. Red flags are going to go up. And so at the average citizen in the community, we have a beautiful airport. I would love to see it nicer. I would like to see more gates. But when I see that SPA Construction came in as the only bid and received it, and they came in for double the estimate, that's a problem. That's a problem. I think the average voter would have a problem with that. I'm going to expose all of these things as I go forward. I pray that I'm blessed enough to get through this primary, because I have every intention of exposing every city leader that's involved. That's one example. But that's a huge problem. It's a mentality that needs to be switched and to completely reverse the way this top-down level of government has been happening.
In the end, and this is why you keep hearing, get yourself out there, learn, meet the candidates, know the issues, go out there and vote. Because in the end, we get the government we deserve. Because there's also a proposition for term limits. Yeah. We already have term limits. They're called elections.
Sure.
And if you keep sending the same people to City Hall, the same people to school districts, same people to state government, and so on and so forth, especially Congress, where these people make a 40, 50-year career working in Congress, who's to blame? The taxpayer. In the end, the taxpayer. Well, all surge or special interest groups and all their money. In the end, you need to organize. You need to galvanize. You need to bring your denominations together, your neighborhoods together. These organizations, these PACs, these special interest groups, they don't fear you. They don't feel the citizens because they're Confederate. They're separate. They're individual. They're unorganized.
They're very high
dollar. They don't show up.
And some of that money, sadly, I would say, has been injected into this race. Opponents of mine on this primary side have received six figures and up of PAC money and lobbying money from out of the area. And so, I've mentioned these on some of my videos. I'm not here to be negative. And let me just say, it's not me. I haven't received anything like that. I will not receive anything like that. I'm funding my campaign myself because I believe in my message. Other than that, I'm getting $20 donations, $50 donations, small donations from neighbors, from people that I just met, the teacher, the police officer. This is my crowd, not an outside lobbying crowd, and I'll take that over $100,000. I'll take that $100 any day of the week. It's so much more meaningful. It's a vote. It's a family. That's a home here in McAllen or Edinburgh or Mission or FAR, and it's so much more meaningful to me, Serge.
Sergio J. Sanchez, Republican. He's running for the nomination for a State House 41. And early election up and running already from the 17th all the way to the 27th. Election day is March 3rd. You need to show up and vote. You need to stay active in the process and learn more about all the candidates that will be on your ballot. Running for office for the first time, right? For the first time. So as it turned out to be everything that you thought in a bag of chips, or like, wow, I wasn't expecting this?
So I've spent a career. I'm a dog in the criminal courts, and that's kind of the way we refer to ourselves. And it's a crucible. I mean, it's iron sharpens iron in those criminal courts, and I prosecuted and now defending. And I got to tell you, this is a whole nother game. Politics is a whole nother game, and there's negativity on social media, and you see the dark, ugly side of things. And so I'm doing my best to take the high road, Serge, and I do my best to respond to comments. And Mama taught me sometimes it's best to just ignore some people. So I those lessons stay with me. But yeah, it is different than the career that I've chosen. I will say this: I think I have a certain advocacy in me, and an intensity to get the job done. And what I've seen overwhelming is a positive response. I think they see humility and that I'm sincere in my message, and I think the region deserves a fighter, and I believe I have that in me. So I'm going to put it out there. Game day is tomorrow. Votes start tomorrow. Yeah. And I have to say, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I'm in, and I'm hopeful for something positive. And I'm going to have a whole nother battle come November if I'm blessed enough to win this March. I'm going to have a whole nother battle, and I acknowledge it. And there's very large players involved, and that's not me. But my message is large, Serge, and that's what's really been motivating.
Well, one thing's for sure, you need a hard casco and a thick skin to get through this, and just ignore. There's a lot of messages you need to ignore.
Yeah. And that's not unique to me, Serge. Let me say this, man. I'm not here to complain about that. I would do it all over again, and I've got a lot of gas in the tank to finish the race. Pastor Eli the other day said at church, that the gospel speaks to speak boldly and to finish the race. Yeah. And it seems like, how does that apply to politics? But it does. It does. And that was motivating to hear. And so there are moments that you get down, right? We're human. And I'll speak honestly about it. And then I'll hear a message like that. Or like I said, mom. And I talk about mom a lot. And or the kids. And there's different forms of motivation. Or a complete stranger. And so that's what fuels me to go forward and to keep pushing. The negativity is not unique to me or a Republican or a Democrat. It hits us all. But I think sincerity rules the day, and I think that's what's kind of vibing out to people.
I'm trying to remember where you met Eli. You were at some forum a few days back, right? That's what it was. You saw Eli Lada, right?
Pastor Eli Lada, and he was nice enough to invite me to service to 3 masses back to back.
That's right. You went to go speak.
It was nice that he allowed. Yeah, he allowed me a minute or two to do it.
It's good. I heard he got deported. I'm glad that he's back. Glad to hear you're back, Eli. He's a friend.
At least
they go really rough with each other. Right.
It takes one to know one, sir. That's really good.
Speaking of law, Sharia law, man, that thing's been up in the news, and a lot of politicians saying, okay, we now need to put up a legal fence, protection, and define and redefine. There can't be any prosecutions and Sharia law trials and Sharia law punishments and Sharia law incarcerations and all that. We got to stop that. Like now,
sure. This shouldn't be very complicated. You cannot have a parallel government. You cannot have carve out areas of autonomy or of sovereignty or of policing themselves, or they're going to set up their own emergency care, or they're going to set up their own form of justice. And by the way, what would the young women in that community, what would their life be like if they faced Sharia judgment and Sharia prosecution?
Oof, my goodness.
How would that go? Yeah. They don't recognize
honor killings, really,
or they don't recognize the allegation of sexual assault unless there's a victim and 2 witnesses. Craziness,
wow.
Serge. Yeah, craziness. And so no, you have to reject that. And this is in the world of incrementalism. It starts, you've seen these case studies in France and these kind of no-go zones where Parisian police refuse to go to a certain area, and they refuse to get into carve out areas, and you have to reject every square inch of that. You can't give an inch to a community to say, our police will not go there, and we're not wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong. You cannot give in an inch on that one. So
and they have already.
and they've tried it in Plano.
Western society is beginning to erode because they're bending a knee to that lunacy.
No, for sure.
And carving out enclaves for them. At some point, that cancer will take over the entire nation, the culture, the
Serge,
state.
I speak of Paris. I'm also speaking of Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas, and it's happening there. And it's already, the Muslim community is requesting the Sharia areas. You have to fight it. That's why this was thrust on us in Texas. This is not something that Governor Abbott came out and just one day woke up and just said, let me come out against this. No, this has been thrust down our throats, so we must deal with it. And really, the only response is you must be firm, and we must stand up for. There's two constitutions at issue: the United States and Texas, and there is no others. There are no others. And even then, there's the world of the supremacy clause. We recognize the United States Constitution to be supreme. So we understand that in the republic that we live in, that's the way it goes. Obviously, each state are sovereign, and they have their own rules and laws, but we must always be under the umbrella of the federal government. There's not room for anything else. For sure, Sharia.
Yeah. Another form of incrementalism that we've seen over the past couple of decades. 2 decades ago, you'd have told me or anyone that gender confusion was going to be an issue. And if you did not conform or respect or pronounce a gender that was preferred by an individual, that you would be prosecuted. And I can just hear the guffaws of these leftists, these very narrow-minded individuals who say they're open-minded, say, "Oh, that will never happen here." It's already happening in parts of the world. That is the agenda, and you don't adhere to the pronoun. If you told us 20 years ago, gender, this dysphoria, this confusion on, I'm a woman inside a man's body, all this mental illness, and to be not only applied by adults, but in children, and to have so-called medical professionals or mental professionals with their highly educated, multiple sheepskin parents, plus the educators, moving children into clinics to have their genitals snipped and cut and changed and getting these hormone suppression injections. This craziness. Yeah. They would have laughed at you back then. "Oh, that's never going to happen." Sure. They laugh at us now. It is. It's happening. Yeah. And that's the agenda on the left. And I think that's one of the propositions on the ballot as well. K through 12, no, senor. None of this gender confusion, stuff like that. Gender, reproductive stuff, no, not in K through 12. Leave it out of school.
For sure. Yeah. And so I say common sense conservatism. This falls in the world of common sense. I mean, let's just be blunt. And I'm thankful for this is one of the huge reasons I'm thankful for President Trump, that we can just speak plainly to what is silly and ridiculous. And this is not in the world of hate speech to not recognize your pronoun. You have every right. You have every right to identify the way you do. But that doesn't project out to me to accept it or to respond, because I have every right to not recognize it. So really that this is the pushback. We all have our own rights, but I'm not going to recognize silliness that one day you're a boy and the next day you're a girl and then the next day you're back. I'm not going to play this game, and I'm not going to raise my children to play it that way. I'm not going to allow for our school districts to cram those crazy ideas down our kids' throats, because this is incrementalism, and it's slowly trying to have the next generation adopt these crazy principles. And so that must be stopped at the school level, because this is where you slowly creep into this discussion, this acceptance and this normalcy, and that we're going to acquiesce and we will adopt this system. No, I reject it. I reject it. So I speak plainly. You mentioned this is your first time into politics. Maybe I don't have the nuance to speak gently to these things. I speak plainly, and this is the world of common sense.
Which we should always expect. Well,
and that's
just
what you
every
got.
person to be who they are and say what they believe.
For
and
sure.
That's it. And if we agree, pues órale, you got my vote.
Fair enough.
That's the way it should be.
Fair enough. And so that it's just not going to work. We see this silliness in other countries. We see it in other parts of our country. And it's just not going to work in Texas. And obviously, I'm running for a House race. I'm not running for a global position or a national position. I know my role here. and this is to get to Austin. Okay, so let's speak to the kids of Texas. These things are not going to be crammed down our throats. So there's every superintendent in the district and everybody involved. And really, the only way to police this is with the possibility of handcuffs. Again, this is a former prosecutor's mentality. If you're going to violate any of this, it shouldn't be in the world of a civil violation. This should be at the level of a misdemeanor. It means handcuffs. It means you got to go to the county jail, and you're going to have to face a criminal charge in court. That's my position. That's how you handle things, Serge, and that's how you motivate people to keep it straight.
Sergio J. Sanchez, former federal prosecutor running for State House, Republican. Sergio J. Sanchez.
Tocayo, if I could, state prosecutor, I was Hidalgo County DA's office, state prosecutor. I was there from 99 through 2005.
Yeah, and then went over to the Fed side.
Well, I defend on the federal level, and a lot of my work. Let me say this: there is a lot of crossover. Going to the black building, there is a lot of crossover. I mean, so you say it. So I provide what's called 5K in the code. It's a section in the criminal code, and so we provide substantial assistance on a lot of cases. So even through the form of defense, I'm assisting the federal government. And the benefit to my client is obviously a reduced sentence. I'll give an example. It's somebody at low level, very low level on a drug case, but he's providing substantial assistance to take down a cartel member or somebody high up. I'm involved in that, and it's a tough game. It is a tough game. So I don't pretend to be a prosecutor. I do assist prosecution, and I do assess federal agents. But respectfully, I just needed to correct you on that one. Yeah, right. Because those guys, they're tough guys and tough ladies, and I don't pretend to take on that title.
As they say in Spanish, mis respetos.
Yeah, right? For sure.
And did you touch on everything? Because you and I talked a little bit about the franchise tax, and you had some specifics that you wanted to drive home as well on.
So I was asked the other night at a forum, and it was great. And Dr. Solis here at STC, hosted us, and we had a nice forum. And it was us three on the Republican side. We did it that Monday, the 9th. And 2 days later was a Democrat primary side. So that Monday was a good discussion. And I was asked if you had to choose between raising taxes to pay for this whatever program is in your mind, and it needs more funding, or reducing that service, what is your choice, right? And so the other two candidates, they kind of responded, and they gave what you would think is the logical Republican response. I'm not going to raise taxes, right? That was their response. And I said, I reject the assertion of the question, because you're missing out on something huge. There is a third possibility in the choice between raising taxes or lowering the service of whatever's at issue. It is to reduce taxes. And if you reduce taxes, you actually increase the revenue. And so I wanted to speak to that, and it got real quiet in the room, Serge. This is the most conservative answer, and it's the most logical one, and it's based in fact. And I gave the example of the franchise tax. It was lowered from 2024 to 2025. It expanded the exemption of these companies that they pay zero, from $2.45 million a year to $2.65. It didn't seem like that big of a deal. Those 200,000 exempted 55,000 companies in Texas that they paid zero. And what happened is they reinvested in themselves, and it went from a $7 billion pile of surplus to $15 billion. So it was reduced, but it was doubled. So is the point you lower taxes to increase the revenue. And so that was my response. And so, yeah, for sure, I want that number to go to 5 million. If I see, I'm a businessman.
On the franchise tax.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that number will increase. And that number itself brings up 6.5% of the state budget. So it's necessary. It's a necessary. So then that would increase the surplus that we enjoy in Texas because of sales tax, and we're an economic powerhouse. But the overarching issue is lowering taxes to do the opposite of what you think actually raises revenue. And so I was happy to speak to that.
Yeah, you can just see how it goes from business. Oh, we're 20. Okay, so let's just get right beneath the the 5 minute. Let's go from 2.5 to
Sure.
3, 4. Let's not grow anymore. You know what I mean? There's
sure.
always a ceiling
Yeah.
on the taxation. That's a conversation they had. And in business-friendly Texas, if we are to be business-friendly.
For sure.
to
And get
create
out of
more
the way.
jobs
And get out of the way of small business. Get out of our way. You will see the numbers explode. And so how do you really, what are we getting at? This is one of the ways that you lower property taxes. You must have the surplus to pay for the school taxes. So it's all connected. Really, I mean, we're going back to square one here.
Yeah.
How do you lower property taxes? And so many in the field say these platitudes. I will lower property tax. I have a plan, and and I have the proof of it that it works. So it's time to separate yourself from a crowded field, Serge. Voting starts tomorrow. I'm asking for everyone to consider voting for Sergio Sanchez. You got a great name, and we align on so much. But I am Sergio J. Sanchez, running for House District 41, and I'm on the Republican primary side.
All right. Website, tell folks, again, go to the camera. Tell folks, website.
SergioForTexas.com, SergioForTexas.com. Again, early voting starts tomorrow. It's game day. And everything has been building up to this. I just ask that it translate. People have shared videos, people have liked, and all the hearts and the comments, and it's really grown exponentially. I just pray that it translates tomorrow.
All right, so let's do a quick recap in like just 15, 20 seconds. The issues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sure.
What do you represent?
Later this evening, I'm going to be with the men and women of the Border Patrol, federal. I've already received the endorsement of the Sheriff's Department, their union. It's huge. It's huge. I used to get a paycheck just like theirs that said Hidalgo County. And that these men and women have endorsed me is huge. They're families. They have families. They have homes. They have kids in the community. The wives of Border Patrol, now at the federal level, now their husbands, I'm meeting with them. And I got to look these men in the eye. And they're afraid. And I proposed something that is spreading within the Border Patrol and ICE. They're reviewing my proposal that on day one will be filed to include them as a special class and to raise this issue to a felony. It's growing, Serge, exponentially. Obviously, the property tax, I can speak into the minutia of all these things, but my background as a prosecutor, I think, is what has really made me stand out. And not only that, I'm writing the law. No one else is capable of doing this.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, man.
Maybe we'll get another chance before the actual election day on the 3rd. But yeah, as Serge said, Sergio J. Sanchez running for State House 41. Again, early voting, it's up and running from February 17th, this week, February 17th through the 27th, Friday, 7 a to 7 p in Hidalgo County. I know that because I got family working at the polls. They're on the front lines. 7 a to 7 p. I think it's different on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I think the hours are a little different on Saturday, Sunday. And again, Republican primary, Sergio J. Sanchez running for State House 41. And don't forget, the actual election day is on March 3rd. Share the video that we
Serge, and if I could, real quick, I recall you were the chairman of the Republican Party back in the day, and you were in an era where you were moving the needle to get to a certain point, and then somebody by the name of Donald Trump really moved the needle. Mm-hmm. But you were involved. You were involved in this seismic shift of the area, and really, we're coming back to where we started, to be conservatives like our grandparents were conservatives. I speak to this. That is the type of conservative that I am. And I'm asking for that kind of common sense that we all grew up with. We stand on the shoulders of our tios and our grandmothers and our grandfathers and our tias. We do. And I believe we're all conservative in our within our culture. And we are culturally conservative, fiscally conservative.
Agreed.
And we live within our means, and we take care of our family, and we enjoy meals. We're at the church kneeling, and this is my definition of conservatism. I want to take that to the State House.
All right. Well, as I've said before, thank you for running.
Sure.
I know it's a major sacrifice. And thank you again for joining us. Share the video with friends and family. All the videos that you see on KURV.com, 710 KURV, YouTube, Facebook, X. We'll have a chance to share a lot more conversations. Again, thank you again for joining us for another edition of the Pulse of the 956.
Thank you.